Hi there. I'm going to pick up kind of where I left off in the last video about me in Mexico, the introductory video really to what was going on in Mexico. And I often go off in tangents, but here we go. I was moving to Mexico because that's where God called me to be. And I truly believed that then, and I believe it now as well. I was there for His purpose. I thought I was there for a fresh start. Yes, the nice weather, absolutely sunshine, lower costs, and maybe even a bit of adventure. But what I didn't expect was how deeply it would change me. I came to Mexico, you see, with a plan. I was going to build a life. I was going to live there. And what I got instead was a lesson on letting go and learning to trust again in life, in others, and in myself. This isn't a story about escaping something. It's about what happens when you stop clinging so tightly to what was and you start saying yes to what could be. Welcome to Writing Life's Next Chapter. My name is Debbie. Letting go isn't one of those things that happen in a big dramatic moment or event. It's 100 little moments stacked up on top of each other. Like opening the door to a casita with torn blinds the owner said he would fix, and realizing that this is home for the next little while. And no, the owner never did fix the blinds. And then there was finding those tiny, tiny little wee micro ants in the kitchen, not just once, several times. It was a regular occurrence, even despite the fact that the place was fumigated or whatever it is that they do around the outside and inside of the house to get rid of bugs. Yeah, after about a week they came back and they had their favorite spot, and that was our drinking water. And not just around it, right into it. Yeah, you know, when things like this happen to you, you soon realize you don't get to control everything. I left behind a house filled with memories. I raised my kids in that house. I left behind a familiar routine and a part-time job that gave me stability and also gave me part of my identity. I left behind friends and family and my very important church family. We moved into a small furnished space, a casita, with very little of my own. I only had what I was able to fit into a couple of suitcases, and it was the same for my two children. There was no furniture to arrange. There was no sense of control. But in that simplicity, I found something I didn't know I needed: room to breathe. Letting go also meant saying goodbye to expectations. I thought I'd move into my new life and feel instantly free. But grief follows you, even when you're doing the right thing. Some days, I miss the sound of familiar voices, the comfort of knowing where everything was, the rhythm of my old life, that kind of grief. But those moments passed, and what came in their place was clarity. And then there was the day my purse was stolen at a coffee shop, with my rent money and my passport inside. After a while, a long while, the police came, and one of the employees there was quick enough on her feet that she took a photo of the man with carrying my purse outside and with her phone and gave that to the police as well. But nothing came of it. You see, that's Mexico. And somehow I didn't crumble. I adjusted. I prayed. I reached out to friends, and I learned that trust is not about expecting things to go right. It's about knowing that you'll find your footing even when they don't. Now, trust is a muscle that I had not used for many years. I'd been hurt. I'd built walls. And now I was in a country where I didn't even speak the language fluently. But something shifted in the small moments. We befriended a female guard at the gated community that I lived in. And she was a young woman with a heritage from India and from Mexico, and she had spent some time in the US. And she had 3 little precious daughters. She spoke perfect English, and she became a bridge for us, helping us with our Spanish and informing us about holiday celebrations and traditions. Her smile was one of the first things that made me feel safe. Oh, the stories I have. There was a family near the gated community that kept geese. One day, the geese found their way through the fence into the gated community, and for some reason, they kept wandering near our casita and our pool. They were there for a couple of days. Eventually, 3 groundskeepers came out, and what followed was like a slow motion comedy. Arms were flailing, voices raised, geese were squawking and honking, and it was ridiculous and it was real. And it made me laugh again. And then there were the fireworks, the cohortes, they called them, or at least these particular ones. The first time I heard them, loud, echoing like gunfire, I nearly jumped out of my skin. I considered crawling underneath the bed for safety. I wasn't expecting this. But as I learned, it was just how celebrations happened in Mexico. For their many, many holidays, their birthdays, their weddings, and just about anything really. And the noise didn't mean danger, it meant joy. I had to rewire my mind to interpret the sounds of celebration, not threat, though I often still jumped at the sound. And that's trust too. Every time someone offered help or advice, every time I said yes to a new situation, I was choosing trust over fear. And it got a little easier each time. What surprised me most was how much I learned to trust myself. You see, though I put up a good front, I wasn't sure I could handle life outside of Canada. But every day I did. I learned to navigate cobblestone streets which were not made for walking. I learned to breathe through fireworks that sounded like gunshots. I learned to live side by side with a black widow spider who had taken up residence over my door. And no, I never named her. There was garbage pickup that came when it wanted to, and multiple dogs, so many dogs, roaming the streets, some with owners, some without. And none of them were fixed. There were the rickety old buses that we rode, with their stripped gears and their dark blue, dusty curtains. And the buskers that came on the buses, clowns and musicians performing and then collecting donations in appreciation for their talents. There were small children trying to sell you candy as you sat in an outdoor restaurant. And their parents looked on. They were standing far enough away. In those moments, I discovered my own patience, my resilience, and even a bit of humor. For the first time in a long time, I felt strong. Not loud strong, quiet strong. Like a tree that learned to bend instead of breaking. One of the most empowering moments, communicating with the embassy. You see, COVID had closed all of the Canadian offices, even in foreign countries. I had to figure everything out over emails and the filling out of forms and then the waiting and the waiting. Forever the waiting. And it was frustrating not to get responses quickly. But I did it. And that was when I realized I don't need to be rescued. I just need some time. No, living in Mexico wasn't always easy, but it was real. And it gave me something priceless: perspective. I didn't go there to be healed, but that's what happened. Not because everything went right, but because despite the obstacles, I was still standing. If you're in a place right now where you feel like you've lost your grip, let go. That might be the moment that you begin to trust again. No, living in Mexico didn't just teach me how to trust others. It reminded me to trust myself and to believe that life still had good things in store for me. If you're in that space, uncertain, rebuilding, quietly hoping, I want you to know it's okay to begin again. It's okay to put your trust in God. If this video spoke to you, hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment and tell me, what are you learning to let go of?